Summer arrived gently at Blackthorne Palace, wrapping the ancient estate in warmth and gold. Roses climbed the marble walls and crimson cascades, fountains sparkled beneath clear skies, and every breeze carried the scent of lavender from the southern gardens. To those who looked upon the palace from afar, it seemed untouched by sorrow. It looked like the kind of place where happiness lived permanently behind sunlit windows. For Duchess Amelia Blackthorne, it almost felt true. She stood in the nursery one bright morning with her hand resting upon the gentle curve of her stomach. 6 months pregnant at last, she could still scarcely believe the miracle. Years of disappointment had taught her not to trust hope too easily. Too many times she had imagined a cradle beside her bed only to wake to emptiness. Too many times she had watched other women carry children while she smiled through private grief. Now, at 26, she finally carried the heir she and her husband had prayed for. A shaft of sunlight spilled across the unfinished nursery as she adjusted a tiny blanket embroidered with silver thread. Her eyes softened. "I think he will have your stubbornness," she murmured. A familiar voice answered from the doorway. "Then the kingdom is doomed." Amelia turned and laughed. Duke Lucien Blackthorne stood there in his dark mourning coat, handsome as ever, amusement warming his gray eyes. At 34 he commanded respect wherever he went. Men trusted his judgment. Rivals feared his intelligence. Citizens praised his fairness. Yet when he looked at Amelia, all that authority seemed to fade. He crossed the room and kissed her forehead. "And if the child is a girl?" he asked. "Then she will rule us both." "That seems even more dangerous." Their laughter mingled in the quiet room. For a brief moment, everything felt perfect. The months that followed should have been the happiest of Amelia's life. The palace bustled with preparations for the future heir. Tailors arrived daily. Noble families sent gifts. Citizens left flowers outside the palace gates. Everywhere Amelia went, she received blessings and congratulations. Yet little by little, something changed. At first it was barely noticeable. Lucien began leaving the palace after dark. The first time, Amelia thought nothing of it. The second time, she assumed it was business. By the fourth week, however, she realized a pattern had formed. Several nights each week he disappeared. No explanation. No destination. No servants accompanied him. When she asked where he had been, he simply smiled and changed the subject. The secrecy unsettled her. Still, she trusted him. Lucien had never given her reason not to. Then the first letter arrived. A maid delivered it during breakfast. No signature. No seal. No name. Amelia unfolded the paper. The handwriting was elegant. "Your husband visits a beautiful woman dressed in red." Amelia stared at the sentence. Then she laughed softly. The letter went straight into the fireplace. Some jealous fool seeking attention, she decided. The matter should have ended there. Instead, another letter arrived. Then another. Then another. Each described the same mysterious woman. Beautiful. Dark-haired. Always dressed in crimson. Always waiting for Lucien. Amelia tried to ignore them. She told herself rumors thrived wherever wealth and power existed. Yet the letters kept coming. And Lucien kept disappearing. One afternoon she entered a corridor unexpectedly and found 2 servants speaking in hushed voices. The women immediately fell silent. Their faces turned pale. Amelia pretended not to notice, but she saw the guilt in their eyes. That night she lay awake long after Lucien had fallen asleep. Moonlight filtered through the curtains. Questions gathered in her thoughts like storm clouds. Was someone trying to destroy their marriage? Or was someone trying to warn her? Days later, the whispers escaped the palace and entered society itself. The gossip spread through drawing rooms and banquet halls. Every gathering carried traces of the same story. The Duke. The mysterious woman. The secret meetings. Amelia endured it with quiet dignity. At least publicly. Privately, the uncertainty gnawed at her. The worst moment came during a midsummer celebration attended by half the kingdom's nobility. Music drifted through the grand ballroom. Crystal chandeliers illuminated smiling faces. Amelia excused herself briefly and stepped onto a balcony overlooking the gardens. Voices drifted from the shadows beyond an open door. She recognized neither speaker. "The Duke spends more time away every week." A woman laughed. "Perhaps he has grown tired of his duchess." Another voice joined her. "A pregnant duchess is easy to replace." The women laughed together. The sound struck Amelia harder than any insult she had ever endured. She stood frozen. One hand instinctively moved to her stomach. For a moment she could not breathe. Then she quietly turned away before they could see her. The celebration continued behind her. Music played. Guests danced. Glasses clinked. Yet something inside her had shifted. When Lucien later offered his arm and smiled at her across the ballroom, Amelia found herself searching his face instead of simply loving it. Searching for answers. Searching for lies. Searching for signs that the man she trusted most in the world was becoming a stranger. That night, after Lucien once again disappeared into the darkness beyond the palace gates, Amelia sat alone beside her bedroom window and stared at the latest anonymous letter resting in her lap. For a long time she listened to distant thunder gathering beyond the hills. Then, with trembling fingers and a heart caught between love and fear, she unfolded a bundle hidden beneath her bed. Inside lay a plain servant's dress, a white apron, and a maid's cap she had secretly ordered days earlier. As lightning flashed beyond the glass, Duchess Amelia Blackthorne made a decision that would change everything. The following evening arrived beneath a sky painted in deep violet and silver. From the windows of Blackthorne Palace, the world appeared calm, almost dreamlike. Lanterns glowed along garden paths. Music drifted faintly from distant halls. Servants moved through polished corridors carrying trays and candles as though nothing in the world had changed. Yet everything had changed for Amelia. The anonymous letters lay hidden inside her dressing table. Every cruel rumor still echoed in her mind. Most painful of all was the memory of Lucien's recent silences. He still kissed her forehead each morning. He still asked about her health. He still placed a protective hand over the child growing within her. But secrets now stood between them. As darkness settled beyond the palace walls, Amelia fastened the final button of a plain servant's dress. The rough fabric felt strange against her skin. A white apron concealed the elegance of her figure. Beneath a simple maid's cap, her chestnut hair disappeared completely. For the first time in years, Duchess Amelia Blackthorne vanished. A maid stood in her place. Her pulse hammered as she slipped through servant passages she had never before entered. Narrow staircases wound through hidden sections of the palace. Dim lanterns cast trembling shadows across stone walls. Everywhere she went, servants hurried past without giving her a second glance. The disguise worked. That realization should have comforted her. Instead, it frightened her. At precisely 10 o'clock, Lucien emerged from his private study. Amelia watched from the shadows. He wore a dark traveling coat rather than formal evening attire. His expression carried the same focused seriousness she had noticed for weeks. Without speaking to anyone, he descended the rear staircase and exited through a side entrance. Amelia followed. The night air felt cool against her cheeks. Keeping her distance, she moved through moonlit grounds while Lucien crossed the estate. Beyond the palace gardens, he mounted a horse waiting near the eastern gate. Amelia had anticipated this. Earlier that evening she had arranged a small carriage driven by an elderly servant who remained loyal to her family. Neither spoke as they followed. The journey stretched nearly an hour. Gradually the lights of the capital disappeared behind them. The road wound through silent countryside silvered by moonlight. Ancient trees leaned over narrow paths. The further they traveled, the more isolated the landscape became. Finally Lucien turned toward a forgotten section of royal land abandoned decades earlier. Amelia's breath caught. She recognized the place from childhood stories. The Royal Moon Garden. Long neglected by the crown, it was said to contain crumbling pavilions and overgrown marble arches hidden beneath climbing ivy. Yet as she approached, she realized someone had restored part of it. Hundreds of candles glowed among the ruins. Golden light danced across white stone. Fountains whispered softly in the darkness. The entire garden seemed suspended between dream and reality. Lucien dismounted near the central pavilion. Someone was already waiting. A woman. Amelia froze. The figure stepped into candlelight. Dark hair. Elegant posture. A crimson gown that shimmered like spilled wine. The mysterious woman from the letters. Lady Arabella Sinclair. Even from a distance, her beauty was undeniable. Amelia felt something cold settle inside her chest. Lucien approached her. Arabella smiled. Not boldly. Not flirtatiously. Yet the familiarity between them struck Amelia like a blade. Hidden behind an ivy-covered archway, she forced herself to watch. Lucien and Arabella spoke quietly. The words drifted away before reaching her. Their expressions remained serious. Occasionally Arabella glanced toward the darkness as if ensuring nobody had followed them. Then Lucien reached inside his coat. A small velvet box appeared in his hand. Amelia's heart stopped. Slowly he opened it. Inside rested a magnificent sapphire necklace. The jewels gleamed beneath candlelight like fragments of midnight sky. Arabella stared at it. Lucien stepped forward. With careful hands he fastened the necklace around her neck. The sight shattered something inside Amelia. Every explanation she had created, every defense she had made for him, every fragile certainty she had protected, all of it began collapsing. She pressed one trembling hand against her stomach. The child shifted gently beneath her palm. For a moment she thought she might faint. Then Arabella spoke. This time the wind carried every word. If your wife discovers this, she will never forgive you. Silence followed. Amelia waited desperately for a denial, for an explanation, for anything. Instead, Lucien lowered his gaze. I know. The word struck harder than any physical blow. Amelia stared at him in disbelief. There was regret in his voice. But even sorrow. Yet there was no denial. No rejection. No attempt to correct Arabella's statement. The world around Amelia blurred. The candles. The flowers. The moonlit arches. Everything seemed distant. For years Lucien had been her safe place. Through disappointments, failed pregnancies, and private grief, he had remained the one certainty she trusted completely. Now that certainty lay broken among the ruins of the garden. She could not bear another second. Turning away, Amelia hurried through the shadows. Tears blurred her vision. Branches scraped her sleeves. Her breathing became uneven. She needed to escape before the crushing weight inside her chest overwhelmed her entirely. As she hurried past the stone archway, something slipped from her trembling fingers. A handkerchief. White silk embroidered with tiny blue flowers. She never noticed it fall. Behind her, conversation abruptly ceased. Lucien's instincts sharpened instantly. He turned toward the darkness. A faint movement disappeared between the trees. Crossing the garden, he discovered the fallen handkerchief resting upon the path. His expression tightened. Someone had been watching. Someone close enough to hear. Yet when he examined the cloth beneath candlelight, he found no crest, no initials, no clue revealing its owner. Only silence. Far away, Amelia returned to Blackthorne Palace shortly before dawn. She removed the maid's uniform with shaking hands. Then she locked herself inside her chambers. The tears came without restraint. She cried until sunrise painted pale gold across her windows. She cried until exhaustion replaced heartbreak. She cried because the future she had imagined for herself and her child no longer seemed real. And as the first light touched the horizon, Duchess Amelia Blackthorne sat alone beside her bed, staring at the wedding portrait she had once treasured. For the first time since marrying Lucien, she found herself wondering whether love could survive a betrayal she had witnessed with her own eyes, or whether the farewell letter waiting unfinished inside her desk would soon become the final chapter of their marriage. Rain arrived before sunset. Dark clouds gathered above Blackthorne Palace, swallowing the last traces of summer light. Wind rattled the tall windows. Thunder rolled across distant hills like the warning growl of an approaching beast. Inside her chambers, Amelia sat motionless beside the fireplace. The unfinished farewell letter lay on her desk. She had spent the entire day staring at it. Again and again she had hoped reason would return. Again and again she had searched for another explanation for what she had witnessed in the moon garden. Yet every memory led her back to the same unbearable truth. Lucien had given another woman a sapphire necklace. Arabella had spoken of forgiveness. Lucien had admitted the risk. The images refused to leave her mind. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Your Grace. It was her lady's maid. Amelia quickly folded the letter. Yes. The Duke asks if you will join him for supper. Pain twisted inside her chest. Even now he acted as though nothing had changed. Even now he smiled while carrying secrets. Tell him I am tired. The maid hesitated. Very well, Your Grace. The door closed. Amelia lowered her gaze to her stomach. Her child moved gently beneath her hand. A tear slipped down her cheek. I thought we were enough for him, she whispered. Outside, rain began striking the glass. Hour after hour the storm strengthened. By midnight the palace slept beneath crashing thunder and relentless wind. Amelia rose from her chair. Her decision had finally been made. She crossed the room and sealed the farewell letter with trembling hands. The message was painfully brief. Lucien, I saw enough. I hope one day our child understands why I could not stay. Do not search for me. Amelia. The final sentence nearly broke her. Yet she forced herself to leave it unchanged. Moments later she wrapped herself in a dark cloak and slipped from her chambers. The corridors stood empty. Lightning flashed through stained glass windows. Rain echoed across the roof. No servants noticed her departure. No guards questioned her. Within minutes, Duchess Amelia Blackthorne disappeared into the storm. The journey beyond the palace gates was miserable. Mud clung to her boots. Cold rain soaked her cloak. The road stretched endlessly ahead. Still she continued. Every step carried her farther from the life she had known, farther from the husband she loved, farther from the heartbreak she could no longer endure. Behind her, Blackthorne Palace remained hidden beneath sheets of rain. Hours passed. Near dawn, Lucien returned from another secret meeting. Water dripped from his coat as he entered the palace. Something felt wrong immediately. The servants avoided his gaze. An uneasy silence lingered throughout the corridor. His instincts sharpened. Without removing his gloves, he climbed the staircase toward Amelia's chambers. The room stood empty, the bed untouched, the fireplace cold. Then he saw the letter. For a long moment he simply stared at it. A strange dread tightened around his chest. Slowly he broke the seal. His eyes moved across the page. The color drained from his face. The letter slipped from his fingers. No. The word emerged as a whisper. Then louder. No. Everything suddenly made sense. The disguised observer. The handkerchief. The pain he had noticed in Amelia's eyes. She had followed him. She had seen Arabella. And she had misunderstood everything. Lucien closed his eyes. The realization struck harder than any wound. The very deception he had created to protect his wife had now driven her away. Within minutes the palace erupted into activity. Guards mounted horses. Messengers rode toward nearby towns. Search parties spread across the countryside. Lucien personally joined them. Rain continued falling throughout the morning. Every mile increased his fear. Amelia was 6 months pregnant. Alone. Heartbroken. And somewhere beyond his reach. Meanwhile, many miles away, Amelia struggled along a deserted forest road. Exhaustion weighed heavily upon her. The storm had weakened, but the sky remained gray and unforgiving. She paused beneath towering trees to catch her breath. The silence felt unnatural. Then she heard hoofbeats. Several riders emerged from the mist. Relief flooded her. At first she believed they were part of Lucien's search party. Then she saw their faces. Strangers. Their expressions carried no kindness. No concern. Only purpose. Fear tightened her throat. Before she could flee, the men surrounded her. "What do you want?" she demanded. No answer came. One rider dismounted. Another seized her arm. Amelia struggled instantly. "Let me go." The men ignored her. A cloth was pulled across her mouth. The world spun. Darkness rushed toward her. The last thing she heard was thunder rolling across distant hills. When Amelia awoke, she found herself imprisoned inside a richly furnished room she did not recognize. Heavy curtains covered the windows. The door was locked. A single guard stood outside. Panic surged through her. She rushed to the window. Iron bars blocked any escape. Then the door opened. An older man entered. His silver hair was perfectly groomed. His tailored coat radiated wealth and authority. Amelia recognized him immediately. Lord Vincent Sinclair. Arabella's father. The nobleman smiled. The expression never reached his eyes. "Your Grace," he said calmly. "What have you done?" Amelia demanded. "Only secured an important investment." Cold dread settled over her. Vincent approached the fireplace. "I must admit, you made matters surprisingly easy." Amelia stared at him. Understanding slowly dawned. This was not random. This was planned. Every instinct screamed danger. Yet before she could question him further, Vincent simply smiled again and left the room. The lock clicked behind him. Far away, Lucien rode through relentless rain toward the capital. By evening he reached a secluded estate hidden outside the city. A lone figure waited inside the abandoned greenhouse. Lady Arabella Sinclair. The moment Lucien arrived, fury blazed in his eyes. "Where is my wife?" Arabella's expression paled. "What happened?" "She saw us." The words struck her like a physical blow. For several seconds neither spoke. Then Arabella lowered her head. "The nightmare has finally begun." Lucien grabbed her arm. "What are you talking about?" Arabella looked up, and for the first time since he had known her, genuine fear appeared in her eyes. The fear was not for herself. It was for Amelia. And when Arabella finally revealed the truth, Lucien felt the ground vanish beneath him. There had never been an affair. Every secret meeting, every whispered conversation, every stolen hour had been part of a hidden investigation. Lord Vincent Sinclair was planning something far worse than scandal. He intended to destroy Amelia, seize the duchy's fortune through forged inheritance papers, and remove the unborn heir forever. Suddenly Lucien understood the horrifying reality. His wife was not merely missing. She was exactly where Vincent had always wanted her to be. Amelia did not know how many hours passed after Lord Vincent Sinclair left her imprisoned inside the isolated estate. The room remained warm, yet fear chilled her to the bone. Rain tapped steadily against the barred windows. Wind moaned through distant corridors. Somewhere within the sprawling manor, floorboards creaked and doors opened and closed, creating the unsettling feeling that unseen eyes constantly watched her. She sat beside the fireplace with both hands resting protectively upon her stomach. Every movement from the twins reminded her why she had to survive. Not only for herself, for them. The realization strengthened something inside her. For weeks she had allowed grief to guide her choices. She had fled the palace believing her marriage destroyed. She had abandoned safety because heartbreak clouded her judgment. Now another emotion emerged. Determination. Whatever Vincent intended, she would not surrender quietly. The following morning brought no comfort. A maid delivered breakfast but refused to answer questions. A guard remained stationed outside the door. The windows were impossible to breach. The estate had become a prison. Late that afternoon Vincent returned. As always he appeared calm, controlled, dangerous. He poured himself a glass of wine before speaking. "I hope you are comfortable." Amelia rose immediately. "Why am I here?" Vincent smiled faintly. "Because your existence complicates certain plans." She held his gaze. "And my children?" His expression darkened slightly. "Unfortunately, they complicate matters as well." The answer sent terror through her. Vincent walked toward the fire. "For years I watched the Blackthorne fortune grow larger. Land, influence, political power. Everything concentrated in one family. You will never have it." His smile widened. "On the contrary, I nearly did." Slowly he explained. Forged inheritance documents had already been prepared. Corrupt officials had been bribed. After the death of the heir, legal challenges would weaken Lucien's position. With enough confusion and manufactured evidence, enormous portions of the duchy's wealth could be redirected. Amelia felt physically ill. All this time, while society obsessed over rumors of infidelity, a far darker threat had been growing beneath the surface. "You are insane." "No," Vincent replied softly. "I am patient." Then he turned and walked away. The lock clicked once more, leaving Amelia alone with the horrifying truth. Miles away, Lucien rode through relentless rain. The revelation Arabella had given him still echoed in his mind. Every sacrifice, every secret meeting, every rumor. All of it had been designed to expose Vincent before he could strike. Yet the plan had failed where it mattered most. Amelia had suffered, and now she was in danger. Arabella rode beside him through the storm. For years she had obeyed her father out of fear. Now she was helping destroy him. Lightning illuminated her troubled face. "I never wanted this." Lucien kept his eyes on the road. "Then help me find her." "I will." Her voice carried absolute conviction. Together they followed a trail of evidence gathered over months of investigation. Bribed servants, hidden financial records, intercepted correspondence. Piece by piece, the path led toward a forgotten estate known as Shadowmoor Hall. The moment Arabella saw its name, fear entered her eyes. "He brought her there." "You are certain?" "Yes." Lucien urged his horse forward. For the first time since Amelia disappeared, hope mixed with his desperation. Meanwhile, darkness settled over Shadowmoor Hall. The storm intensified. Thunder rattled the windows. Amelia paced her room. Something felt different. The guards outside seemed restless. Voices echoed from distant corridors. Then came the sound of shouting. Her heart skipped. A second later, another noise followed. The unmistakable clash of steel. Amelia rushed toward the door. More shouting erupted. Boots thundered through the manor. Then a gunshot exploded somewhere below. The estate had become chaos. Hope surged through her. Someone had come. The lock suddenly turned. The door flew open. A frightened servant stumbled inside. "They're here," she whispered. "Who?" "The Duke." Relief hit Amelia so hard she nearly collapsed. Before she could respond, alarms sounded throughout the building. The servant fled. The door remained open. Amelia hurried into the corridor. Smoke drifted through the manor. Guards raced in every direction. Lightning flashed through tall windows. For the first time, escape seemed possible. She followed the noise downstairs. The grand entrance hall had become a battlefield. Lucien's loyal men fought Vincent's guards among shattered furniture and overturned tables. Rain blew through broken windows. Thunder shook the ceiling. At the center of the chaos stood Lucien. For one frozen moment, husband and wife saw each other. Neither moved. Neither spoke. The world seemed to disappear around them. Then Vincent emerged from a side corridor. A pistol gleamed in his hand. Everything happened at once. Arabella shouted a warning. Lucien turned. Vincent fired. The shot echoed like thunder. Amelia screamed. Lucien threw himself forward. The bullet struck his shoulder instead of its intended target. Pain flashed across his face. Yet he remained standing. Rage exploded among the guards. The struggle intensified. Vincent attempted to flee toward a rear passage. Arabella intercepted him. Tears filled her eyes. Enough. For the first time, father and daughter stood on opposite sides. Vincent stared at her with disbelief. You would betray your own blood? No, she whispered. You betrayed us all. She handed Lucien a leather folder. The evidence. Every forged document. Every financial record. Every proof of conspiracy. The foundation of Vincent's scheme collapsed instantly. Surrounded and exposed, he had nowhere left to run. Moments later, guards seized him. The mastermind who had hidden behind wealth and influence finally fell. Silence gradually settled across the ruined hall. Rain continued falling beyond shattered windows. Broken glass glittered across the floor. The battle was over. Only one wound remained. Lucien turned toward Amelia. Blood stained his coat. Exhaustion lined his face. Yet his eyes never left hers. Slowly he crossed the distance between them. Neither spoke at first. Too much pain stood between them. Too many misunderstandings. Too many sleepless nights. Finally Amelia found her voice. The affair. Lucien closed his eyes briefly. There was never an affair. Everything Arabella had revealed rushed back into her memory. The necklace. The meetings. The investigation. The sacrifices. Suddenly every piece fit together. Every rumor. Every secret. Every unanswered question. The truth struck with overwhelming force. She had been wrong. And he had endured it all for her. Lucien lowered himself painfully onto one knee despite the wound in his shoulder. Rainwater dripped from his hair. Blood darkened his sleeve. His voice trembled for the first time. I would let the whole kingdom believe I was a villain if it meant keeping you alive. Amelia's tears came instantly. Months of fear, heartbreak, and regret finally shattered. She fell into his arms. Neither cared about the soldiers watching. Neither cared about the ruined hall surrounding them. For a brief moment, only forgiveness existed. Yet as they embraced beneath the storm-dark sky, neither noticed the older physician rushing through the manor doors carrying urgent news from Blackthorne Palace. The doctor had ridden through the night to find them, and the moment he saw Amelia, his expression turned grave. What he carried was not a message about the conspiracy. It was a warning about her pregnancy, and before dawn arrived, both Lucien and Amelia would face a new battle neither sword nor sacrifice could defeat. The journey back to Blackthorne Palace felt strangely different from the desperate ride that had taken them away. The storm had finally passed, leaving behind a world washed clean by rain. Morning sunlight spilled across fields and forests, turning every droplet into gold. Yet inside the carriage, silence lingered between Amelia and Lucien. Not the cold silence of suspicion. Not the painful silence of betrayal. A quieter silence. The kind born when two hearts had suffered deeply and were slowly finding their way back to one another. Lucien's shoulder had been treated by physicians before they departed Shadowmoor Hall. Though pale from blood loss, he refused to rest for long. His attention remained fixed upon Amelia. The physician's warning weighed heavily on both of them. The stress of recent weeks had placed immense strain upon her pregnancy. The twins were alive. For now. But the coming months would require great care. Every jolt of the carriage made Lucien tense. Every time Amelia shifted uncomfortably, concern flashed across his face. At last she reached across the seat and took his hand. You cannot protect me from every danger. His fingers tightened around hers. I failed to protect you from the first one. The pain in his voice broke her heart. Amelia studied the man she had married. The man who had carried the burden of an impossible secret. The man who had endured public humiliation, whispered scandals, and her own misunderstanding because he believed it was the only way to keep her safe. For the first time she truly understood how lonely he had been. You should have trusted me. The words emerged gently. Lucien lowered his gaze. I know. You made decisions for both of us. I know. You nearly lost us. His expression darkened. I know that too. The honesty disarmed her completely. There were no excuses, no attempts to defend himself. Only regret. Amelia leaned against him. Slowly, carefully, he wrapped an arm around her shoulders. Outside the carriage windows, the kingdom rolled past beneath clear skies. For the first time in many weeks, hope traveled beside them. The following months passed with remarkable quiet. Vincent Sinclair's arrest sent shockwaves through noble society. The investigation uncovered years of corruption hidden beneath respectability and influence. Forged inheritance claims, bribed officials, secret financial schemes. Every revelation deepened the scandal. The nobleman who had once dined beside kings became a symbol of disgrace. His allies abandoned him. His reputation collapsed. His empire of deception crumbled stone by stone. Meanwhile, Arabella Sinclair faced a different future. Many expected condemnation. Instead, the truth revealed her courage. Without her testimony, Vincent's crimes might never have been exposed. Without her help, Amelia would never have been found. One snowy afternoon she visited Blackthorne Palace for the final time. Amelia received her personally. The meeting carried an awkward tenderness. Arabella stood near the fireplace wearing a dark traveling coat. Tomorrow she would leave the kingdom. A new life awaited across the sea. For a long moment neither woman spoke. Then Arabella smiled sadly. "I suppose I was the villain in your story." Amelia shook her head. "No. You certainly thought so." A faint laugh escaped them both. The tension finally broke. Arabella's eyes softened. "I never wanted to come between you." "I know. And your husband never stopped loving you." Amelia glanced toward the window where Lucien stood outside speaking with estate managers. A warmth spread through her chest. "I know that too." Arabella followed her gaze. "Then hold on to it." Hours later she departed beneath falling snow. Neither woman expected to meet again. Yet both left with peace. Winter deepened across the kingdom. Inside Blackthorne Palace, preparations for the twins transformed every corridor. Nurseries were completed. Tiny clothes filled wardrobes. Cradles stood ready beside roaring fireplaces. The entire duchy seemed to hold its breath. Then one night, as snow drifted beyond the windows and candles flickered throughout the palace, labor began. Fear returned immediately. The physician's warning echoed in Lucien's mind. Hours stretched endlessly. The palace remained awake. Servants whispered prayers. Doctors moved in and out of chambers. Lucien paced the corridor like a condemned man awaiting judgment. Nothing in his life had ever frightened him more. Not political enemies. Not financial ruin. Not armed confrontations. Only this. The possibility of losing Amelia. Near dawn, a cry finally echoed through the nursery wing. Then another. Lucien stopped moving. The physician emerged moments later. A smile spread across his exhausted face. "Your Grace." Lucien could barely breathe. "Your wife is safe." Relief nearly brought him to his knees. "And the children?" The physician laughed softly. "Both of them." Lucien stared. "Both. Twins." For several seconds he simply stood frozen. Then he entered the room. Amelia rested against white pillows, exhausted but radiant. In her arms lay two newborn infants wrapped in soft blankets. A boy and a girl. Tears filled Lucien's eyes. Without shame. Without hesitation. For all his strength, authority, and power, nothing had prepared him for this moment. Amelia smiled weakly. "They have your eyes." Lucien knelt beside the bed. "No." His voice broke. "They have your courage." Weeks later, the kingdom gathered for a celebration unlike any in recent memory. Citizens filled the capital. Banners fluttered from every building. Church bells rang throughout the city. The birth of the twins had become a symbol of renewal after months of scandal and uncertainty. Inside the grand palace courtyard, nobles, royals, and common citizens assembled together. The entire kingdom seemed present. Amelia stood beside Lucien upon a raised platform overlooking the crowd. The twins rested safely nearby. Sunlight illuminated the palace towers. Music filled the air. Yet everyone sensed something unusual was about to happen. Lucien stepped forward. Silence spread through the gathering. His voice carried across the courtyard. "For months this kingdom heard lies." The crowd listened carefully. "My wife suffered because of those lies." Amelia felt emotion tighten her throat. Lucien turned toward her. Everything else faded. The crowd. The palace. The kingdom itself. Only Amelia remained. Slowly he removed the ducal ring from his finger. Gasps swept through the audience. The ring had symbolized generations of Blackthorne power. Inheritance. Authority. Legacy. Lucien took Amelia's hand. Then he placed the ring gently into her palm. No one moved. No one spoke. The entire kingdom watched. His eyes never left hers. "This title belongs to me by birth," he said. Emotion trembled beneath every word. "But my heart belongs to you by choice." For a heartbeat, complete silence followed. Then the crowd erupted. Cheers thundered across the courtyard. Applause echoed against palace walls. Many nobles lowered their heads in respect. Others wiped tears from their eyes. Amelia stared at the ring resting in her hand. The symbol meant little compared to what it represented. Trust restored. Love chosen again. A marriage that had survived doubt, deception, and loss. She stepped forward and kissed him before the entire kingdom. The applause only grew louder. That evening, long after the celebrations ended and the palace quieted, Lucien and Amelia stood together upon the balcony overlooking their lands. The twins slept peacefully inside nearby chambers. Far below, thousands of lanterns still glowed throughout the capital. For a long time neither spoke. Then Amelia rested her head against Lucien's shoulder and watched the first colors of sunrise appear beyond the horizon. They had nearly lost everything that mattered. Their future. Their family. Each other. Yet somehow, through pain and sacrifice, they had found their way back. And as golden light spread across the kingdom, husband and wife stood together not because fate demanded it, not because titles required it, but because after every trial, every misunderstanding and every heartbreak they still chose one another.